My name is James Carter, and I used to believe in the American dream. 43 years old, owner of Carter's Auto Repair, married to a successful attorney named Vanessa, father to 17-year-old Sophie. I thought I had it all figured out until that Tuesday night in October, when everything went to hell. I was 200 miles away in Springfield, finishing up a deal to buy used transmission parts for my shop. The motel room smelled like industrial cleaner and broken dreams. I'd been suspicious of Vanessa for months, the late nights, the cold shoulder, the way she'd started calling me sweetie instead of my name, like I was some distant relative she barely tolerated. My phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m., a text from Mia Rodriguez, our neighbor across the street. Not even my business, but a tall, muscular guy just showed up at your door. Your wife let him in. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Mia was 32, gorgeous in that effortless way that made married men stupid, and had the kind of sharp intelligence that missed nothing. She'd moved in 6 months ago after her divorce, and Vanessa had immediately started making snide comments about her inappropriate gardening outfits and attention-seeking behavior. I stared at the text for a full minute before responding. "I'm out of town. Can you help? Maybe check on things?" 3 dots appeared immediately. "You? Of course I can." Smiley face emoji. "Thank you so much. Give me 20 minutes, I'll be subtle." I sat on the edge of that scratchy motel bed, hands shaking slightly, and waited. Part of me hoped I was wrong. Part of me had been preparing for this moment for months. 23 minutes later, my phone exploded with evidence. Photo after photo, timestamps. A tall, muscular man with perfectly styled hair and gym rat arms wrapped around my wife in our living room. Another shot of them heading upstairs, his hand on her ass. A clear picture of his license plate. Even a short video of him sneaking out the back door at 1:15 a.m., adjusting his shirt. The man was Damian Blake. I recognized him from Vanessa's Instagram posts. Her personal trainer from that upscale gym downtown. The same guy she'd been mentioning more and more over the past few months. "I'm so sorry, James. Got everything documented. What do you need me to do?" I stared at the photos until my eyes burned. 15 years of marriage. 15 years of building a life together, supporting her through law school, celebrating her promotions, pretending not to notice when she started looking at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "Keep watching. Document anything else. I'll handle the rest." "You got it. And James, you deserve better than this." I called my lawyer at 2 a.m. Marcus Webb had handled my business contracts for years, and he answered on the second ring like the professional he was. "James, what's wrong?" "I need to file for divorce, tonight, and I need it done right." "Slow down. What happened?" I sent him Mia's photos and explained the situation. Marcus whistled low. "This is ironclad evidence. We can file first thing in the morning, cite adultery, and with her income level you might even get alimony. Where are you now?" "Springfield. I'll be home tomorrow afternoon. Don't confront her yet. Let me get the paperwork started. And James, document everything from here on out. Every conversation, every interaction. This is war now." I hung up and stared at the ceiling until dawn, planning my next move. By the time I loaded my truck and headed home, I wasn't the same man who'd left 2 days earlier. That guy had been naive enough to believe his wife's lies. This guy was ready to burn it all down. I pulled into our driveway at 3:30 p.m. on Wednesday, noting that Damian's silver BMW was nowhere to be seen. Our house looked the same, 2-story colonial with the perfectly manicured lawn that Vanessa insisted on, the expensive landscaping that screamed successful family lives here. But now it felt like a movie set, all facade with nothing real behind it. Vanessa's Mercedes was in the garage. She was home early, which never happened unless something was wrong, or unless she was covering her tracks. I found her in the kitchen, wearing one of her power suits and typing furiously on her laptop. She looked up when I walked in, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Fear? Then it was gone, replaced by her practiced smile. "Hey, sweetie, how was Springfield? You're home earlier than I expected." "Trip went well. Got the parts I needed." I set my duffel bag down and watched her carefully. "How were things here? Anything interesting happen?" "Oh, you know how it is. Boring suburban life. I worked late both nights, came home exhausted. Sophie had that drama club thing yesterday. The usual." Every word was a lie. I could see it in the way she wouldn't quite meet my eyes, the way her fingers kept tapping against her coffee mug. 15 years of marriage had taught me to read her tells, even if I'd been ignoring them lately. "That's good. Glad it was quiet." I pulled out my phone. "Actually, I got some interesting texts while I was away. Want to see?" Her face went pale. "What kind of texts?" I showed her the first photo, her and Damien in our living room, his arms around her waist, both of them clearly about to head upstairs for what definitely wasn't a training session. The coffee mug slipped from her hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. "James, I can explain." "Can you?" I swiped to the next photo, then the next. "Because these seem pretty self-explanatory. That's Damien Blake, right? Your personal trainer? The one you've been telling me is helping you get in shape for that charity gala? You had someone spy on me?" Her shock was genuine, but it quickly morphed into indignation. Classic Vanessa, caught red-handed and somehow making herself the victim. "That's illegal. That's invasion of privacy." "Actually, it's not. Mia was concerned when she saw a strange man entering our house while I was away. She was being a good neighbor, making sure you were safe. Turns out you were more than safe." "Mia?" Vanessa's voice turned venomous. "That little slut across the street? Of course she'd stick her nose where it doesn't belong. She's been trying to break us up since she moved in." "Really? Because from where I'm standing, you did a pretty good job of that yourself." I showed her the video of Damien sneaking out. "Tuesday night, 1:15 a.m., in our house, in our bed. Want to keep lying, or should we skip to the part where you try to justify 15 years of marriage down the drain for some gym rat?" Vanessa's lawyer training kicked in. She straightened up, crossed her arms, and went on the offensive. "Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Damien. But this marriage has been destroyed for years, James. We're like roommates. When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time you showed any interest in my career, my goals, my life? You come home covered in grease, grunt through dinner, and fall asleep watching TV. I needed something more. So, you decided to get it in our marital bed while I was working to support your lifestyle? Don't act like you're some saint. You've checked out of this marriage completely. At least I had the courage to find someone who actually wants to be with me." The front door slammed, and Sophie walked in, earbuds dangling, phone in hand as always. She looked between us, taking in the broken mug, the tension, my phone still displaying evidence of her mother's affair. "What's going on? Why does Mom look like she's about to cry?" "Your father hired someone to spy on me," Vanessa said quickly. "He's accusing me of having an affair." "I didn't hire anyone, and I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm showing you photographic evidence of you cheating on our marriage." I turned to Sophie. "Your mother has been sleeping with her trainer while I've been working out of town." Sophie looked at my phone, her face cycling through confusion, embarrassment, and finally landing on anger. But not the anger I expected. "Dad, this is so gross. Like, who does this? Who spies on their own wife? Mom's right. You guys have been weird for months. Maybe if you paid attention to her instead of just your stupid garage." "Sophie, that's enough," I said quietly. "No, it's not enough. This is humiliating. What if someone at school sees this? What if this gets out? You're ruining everything because you're paranoid." She stormed upstairs, and I heard her door slam hard enough to rattle the windows. Vanessa smiled triumphantly. "See? Even your own daughter knows you're being unreasonable. We can work through this, James. Marriage counseling. Maybe some time apart to figure things out. No. I put my phone away and looked at her directly. I filed for divorce this morning. You'll be served with papers tomorrow. I suggest you get your own lawyer. The color drained from her face completely. You what? 15 years, Vanessa. 15 years I supported you, believed in you, built a life with you, and you threw it away for some muscle-bound idiot who probably can't spell his own name. So no, we're not working through anything. We're done. I picked up my duffel bag and headed for the stairs. Where are you going? To pack some things. I'll be staying at Derek's place until this gets sorted out. James, wait. Please, can we at least talk about this like adults? I paused on the bottom step and looked back at her. She was crying now, mascara starting to run, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. For just a moment, I felt a flicker of the old sympathy. Then I remembered the video of Damien sneaking out of our house, adjusting his clothes, smirking like he'd gotten away with something. You want to talk like adults? Here's some adult truth. You're a cheating, lying, manipulative woman who destroyed our family for cheap thrills. You can explain that to Sophie when she's old enough to understand what really happened here. You can explain it to your parents when they ask why their perfect daughter's marriage fell apart. And you can explain it to Damien when he realizes he's now stuck with a woman who cheats on her husband. I went upstairs to pack, leaving her sobbing in the kitchen, surrounded by broken ceramic and the wreckage of her lies. Derek Morrison owned O'Malley's pub downtown and had been my best friend since high school. He was also an ex-cop who knew where all the bodies were buried in our little suburb. When I showed up at his door with 2 suitcases and a 6-pack, he took one look at my face and let me in without questions. She finally did it, didn't she? He said, cracking open a beer and handing it to me. How did you know? Brother, half the neighborhood's been talking about her and that trainer for weeks. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. He settled into his recliner and studied me. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Divorce her. Take her for everything I can legally get. That's the logical play. But you've got that look in your eye, the same one you had in high school when Tommy Peterson keyed your Camaro. This isn't just about divorce, is it? I told him everything. Mia's texts, the photos, Vanessa's reaction, Sophie's tantrum. Derek listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or making disgusted noises. So what's your next move? He asked when I finished. I want to humiliate her. I want everyone to know what she really is behind that perfect lawyer facade. I want her precious reputation destroyed the same way she destroyed our marriage. Derek grinned. It wasn't a nice expression. Now you're talking my language. Lucky for you, I know exactly how this neighborhood gossip network operates, and I know someone who's been waiting for a chance to take Vanessa down a peg. The next morning, I drove to work early, trying to lose myself in the familiar rhythm of brake jobs and oil changes, but my phone kept buzzing with updates from Mia. Damien's car was back this morning, left around 7 a.m. Vanessa looked like hell taking Sophie to school. Dark sunglasses, no makeup. Process server just left. She got the papers. That last text made me smile for the first time in 2 days. Around noon, Mia called me directly. James, do you have a few minutes to talk? I'm at home. I walked across the street to her house, noting how different it looked from ours. Where Vanessa demanded sterile perfection, Mia's place was warm and lived in. Plants everywhere, a cat sleeping in the window, actual books scattered around instead of just law journals and design magazines. Coffee? She offered. Please. She poured 2 cups and sat across from me at her kitchen table. Up close, I could see why Vanessa felt threatened. Mia was naturally beautiful, in a way that didn't require an hour of makeup and a closet full of designer clothes. I wanted to apologize, she said. I know this is a terrible situation, and I feel bad about being the messenger. Don't apologize, you did me a favor. I needed to know. Still, it can't be easy. She paused, seeming to weigh her words carefully. There's something else you should know, about Vanessa and me. What about you? We have history. Before I moved here, I worked as a paralegal at Morrison & Associates downtown. Vanessa was a junior partner there. She made my life difficult. How so? Mia's jaw tightened. She accused me of sleeping with one of the senior partners to get ahead, spread rumors, made sure I couldn't get references when I left. Basically destroyed my legal career because she saw me as competition. Jesus, I'm sorry. The point is, my help isn't entirely altruistic. I have my own reasons for wanting to see her taken down. But that doesn't change the fact that what she did to you is wrong. I studied her face. What are you proposing? I know this neighborhood. I know who talks to whom, who has influence, who can't keep a secret. If you want to destroy her reputation, I can help you do it surgically. But it has to be smart. It has to look natural. What did you have in mind? Mia smiled, and for the first time, I saw something sharp and predatory in her expression. Leave that to me. Just make sure you're ready for the fallout. Once this starts, there's no going back. That afternoon, the first domino fell. Mrs. Patterson from 2 houses down called me at the shop. James, dear, I hope you don't mind me asking, but is everything all right at home? I couldn't help but notice some unusual activity. By evening, my phone was ringing constantly. Neighbors, acquaintances, even some of my customers, all expressing concern and fishing for information. Mia had worked fast, and she'd been subtle about it. Nothing direct, nothing that could be traced back to her. Just a few carefully placed comments about concerning behavior and that poor man working so hard while his wife entertains visitors. The beauty of suburban gossip is that it spreads like wildfire and grows in the telling. By Thursday night, the story had evolved from Vanessa might be having an affair to Vanessa's been carrying on with multiple men while her husband works himself to death. I was starting to understand why Derek had looked so pleased when I'd told him my plans. This wasn't just revenge, it was art. Friday morning brought an unexpected visitor to my shop. Damian Blake himself, looking like he'd stepped off the cover of a fitness magazine, all sculpted muscles and artificial confidence. He'd probably spent an hour getting his hair just right before coming to confront me. "You Carter?" he asked, walking into my garage like he owned the place. "That's me. You must be Damian. I've seen your picture." His jaw tightened. "We need to talk." "About what? Your training methods? Because from what I saw, you're pretty hands-on with your clients." "Look, man, I don't want any trouble, but you need to back off with this divorce thing. Vanessa's a good woman and she doesn't deserve to have her life ruined because you two grew apart." I set down my wrench and really looked at him. Mid-20s, probably never had a real job in his life, the kind of guy who thought his abs were a personality trait. The fact that he had the balls to come here and lecture me about my own marriage was almost impressive. "Grew apart," I laughed. "Is that what she told you? That we just drifted apart naturally and she fell into your arms out of loneliness?" "Something like that." "Did she mention that she was still sleeping with me right up until I caught her with you? Did she tell you about the family vacation we took last month? Or the anniversary dinner where she told me how much she loved me? Because if we were growing apart, someone forgot to tell me." His confidence wavered slightly. That's different. Sometimes people stay together out of habit. Sometimes people cheat because they're selfish, lying pieces of shit who want to have their cake and eat it too." I stepped closer to him. "Here's what's going to happen, Damian. You're going to walk out of my shop and never come back. You're going to stay away from my wife until the divorce is final. And if I see you anywhere near my daughter, I'm going to introduce you to some tools that weren't designed for auto repair." "You threatening me?" "I'm educating you. There's a difference." He tried to stare me down, but I'd been dealing with tough guys since before he hit puberty. Eventually, he looked away. "This isn't over," he muttered, heading for the door. "Yeah, it is." After he left, I called Mia. Guess who just paid me a visit? The muscle-bound moron? That's the one. He wanted me to back off the divorce because Vanessa's a good woman who doesn't deserve to have her life ruined. Mia laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh, that's rich. Did you tell him about her habit of destroying other women's careers when she feels threatened? Didn't come up, but I'm starting to think we need to escalate this situation. Funny you should mention that. Sophie's school is having their annual fundraising gala tomorrow night. Big fancy affair, all the important families will be there. Vanessa's been on the planning committee for months. I could hear the wheels turning in her voice. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it would be a shame if certain information became public at such a prestigious event, especially if it came from a concerned neighbor who was just looking out for the community's moral standards. That's diabolical. That's justice. Saturday evening, I put on my best suit and drove to Westfield Academy's annual gala. The school's gymnasium had been transformed into something resembling a high-end hotel ballroom, complete with white tablecloths, mood lighting, and a small army of servers carrying champagne and hors d'oeuvres. I spotted Vanessa immediately. She was wearing a black cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people made in a week, holding court near the silent auction tables with a group of other lawyers' wives. She looked perfect, polished, completely in control. The kind of woman who would never dream of betraying her family for a cheap thrill. Sophie was across the room with her friends, probably live-tweeting the whole event and complaining about how boring adult parties were. She'd barely spoken to me since Wednesday, clearly having chosen her side in the divorce. I found a table in the back and waited. Mia had promised to be here, though I hadn't seen her yet. The plan was simple. Wait for the right moment, then let the truth speak for itself. That moment came during the speeches. The headmaster had just finished thanking everyone for their generous donations when he invited community members to share any thoughts or concerns about the school's future. Mia stood up from a table near the front, looking elegant in a simple blue dress that somehow managed to outclass every designer outfit in the room. She walked to the microphone with confidence, and I noticed several men tracking her movement with obvious appreciation. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system. "I'm Mia Rodriguez, and while I don't have children at Westfield yet, I'm planning to move my nephew here from California next year. I wanted to talk about the importance of moral leadership in our community." Vanessa's face had gone pale. She knew what was coming. As parents and community members, we're responsible for modeling the values we want our children to embrace: honesty, integrity, faithfulness to our commitments. Unfortunately, not everyone in our community shares these values. The room had gone completely quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. I recently discovered that one of Westfield's own planning committee members has been carrying on an extramarital affair, bringing her lover into the family home while her husband works to support their lifestyle. This same person has spent years presenting herself as a pillar of the community while secretly betraying everything she claims to stand for. Murmurs started rippling through the crowd. People were looking around, trying to figure out who she was talking about. I have photographic evidence of this behavior, including images of the affair taking place in the family home. I believe parents have a right to know what kind of moral leadership they're getting from their planning committee. Vanessa shot to her feet. "This is outrageous. You can't just make accusations without proof." "You're absolutely right," Mia said calmly. "Which is why I brought proof." She nodded to someone near the back of the room, and suddenly the images appeared on the large screen that had been showing the school's promotional video. Clear, time-stamped photos of Vanessa and Damien in our living room, heading upstairs, him sneaking out afterward. The room erupted. Gasps, shocked whispers, the sound of chairs scraping as people turned to stare at Vanessa. Someone's phone was already out, recording the whole thing. "You witch!" Vanessa screamed, her perfect composure finally cracking. "This is illegal. This is harassment." "This is documentation of adultery," Mia replied evenly. And it's perfectly legal when it takes place in full view of the neighborhood. I stood up from my table in the back. Actually, I can verify the authenticity of these photos. That's my house. That's my wife. And that's her personal trainer, who she's been sleeping with while I've been working out of town. The crowd turned to look at me, and I saw expressions ranging from sympathy to disgust to morbid fascination. Sophie was staring at me in horror, her face bright red with embarrassment. "Dad, stop," she hissed. "You're ruining everything." "No, sweetheart. Your mother did that when she decided to cheat on our marriage." Vanessa was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks, surrounded by the wives who had been her closest friends just minutes earlier. But instead of comfort, I saw judgment in their faces. The kind of women who built their social status on moral superiority didn't tolerate this kind of scandal in their ranks. The headmaster was trying to regain control of the situation, but it was too late. The damage was done. By tomorrow morning, everyone in our social circle would know exactly what kind of woman Vanessa Carter really was. As I walked out of the gala, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: satisfaction. Deep, warm, completely justified satisfaction. The war was just beginning. The fallout from the gala was swift and merciless. By Sunday morning, my phone was buzzing with calls from people I hadn't heard from in years, all wanting to express their shock and support. Vanessa's carefully constructed social network was collapsing in real time. Derek called around 10 with an update from his network of contacts. 3 of her biggest clients have already requested new representation, he reported. The partners at her firm are reviewing the situation, which is corporate speak for figuring out how to fire her without a lawsuit. And get this, someone posted video of last night's speech on Facebook. It's already got 15,000 views. Jesus. It gets better. Damien's gym fired him this morning. Turns out the owners don't appreciate trainers who sleep with married clients. Bad for the family-friendly image. I should have felt guilty about destroying 2 people's careers in one weekend. Instead, I felt like I was finally getting justice after months of being made a fool of. Around noon, Vanessa called me directly. "James, please, we need to talk. I think we've said everything we need to say. Our daughter is devastated. She won't come out of her room. She's getting messages from classmates, horrible things about our family. This has gone too far." "Has it? Because from where I'm sitting, people are just learning the truth about what you did to our family. I made a mistake. I know that. But Sophie doesn't deserve to suffer because of my choices. Please, can we meet somewhere private, just to talk about how to handle this going forward?" Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at Riverside Park that evening. It was neutral ground, public enough to prevent any dramatic scenes, private enough for an honest conversation. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench overlooking the lake. Without her makeup and designer clothes, she looked older, smaller, more human than she had in years. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down beside her. "This doesn't change anything, Vanessa. We're still getting divorced." "I know. I wanted you to understand why it happened. Not to excuse it, just to explain. I'm listening." She was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the water. "Do you remember when we first met? You were working at that garage downtown, saving money to start your own business. I was in law school, dreaming about making partner someday. We had all these plans. I remember. Somewhere along the way, we stopped dreaming together. You got your garage, I got my career, and we just existed in the same house, like roommates splitting expenses. So you decided to spice things up with a personal trainer? I decided I was tired of feeling invisible in my own marriage." Her voice sharpened. "When's the last time you asked me about my work? Really asked, not just, how was your day while you're reading the paper? When's the last time you planned a surprise for me, or told me I looked beautiful, Or acted like you were glad to be married to me instead of just resigned to it? The accusations stung because they weren't entirely wrong. We had fallen into a routine, taking each other for granted, but that didn't justify what she'd done. You could have talked to me. We could have gone to counseling, taken a vacation, figured out how to reconnect. Instead, you decided to betray 15 years of marriage for some guy who probably can't spell commitment. Damien made me feel alive again, desired, important. When he looked at me, I wasn't just someone's wife or someone's mother or someone's business partner. I was just me. And now? How do you feel now that everyone knows what you are? She flinched. That's cruel. That's honest. You destroyed our family for a fantasy, Vanessa, and now Sophie's paying the price for your choices. I know. Tears started flowing again. I know I screwed up everything, but can't we find a way to protect her from this? She's just a kid. She's 17, old enough to understand that actions have consequences. Maybe this will teach her something about the importance of keeping commitments. Or maybe it'll teach her that people she loves can't be trusted. That hit harder than I expected. For the first time since this whole thing started, I felt a flicker of doubt about the path I'd chosen. What do you want from me, Vanessa? I want us to handle the divorce quietly. No more public humiliation, no more revenge schemes. Just two adults ending a marriage with as much dignity as we can salvage. Dignity? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Where was your concern for dignity when you were sleeping with your trainer in our bed? Where was your concern for our family when you were lying to my face every day for months? I deserve that. I deserve all of it, but Sophie doesn't. She was right about that, at least. Sophie was collateral damage in a war she hadn't started, but I wasn't ready to call a ceasefire yet. I'll think about it, I said finally. Thank you. That's all I can ask. As I walked back to my truck, I felt the weight of the decision ahead of me. I could continue the campaign of destruction, making sure Vanessa paid the maximum price for her betrayal, or I could try to salvage something from the wreckage for Sophie's sake. The choice would define what kind of man I really was. Monday morning brought unexpected news. Marcus Webb called me at the shop with an update on the divorce proceedings. Vanessa's lawyer wants to negotiate, he said. They're proposing a 50-50 split of assets, shared custody of Sophie, and no alimony either way. It's actually a pretty generous offer considering the evidence we have. What's the catch? They want a non-disclosure agreement. No more public statements about the affair, no more sharing of evidence, complete confidentiality going forward. They want to buy my silence. Essentially, yes. The question is whether you're willing to sell it. Before I could answer, my other line rang. It was the high school. Mr. Carter, this is Principal Morrison at Westfield High. I'm calling about Sophie. She's been involved in an altercation with another student, and we need you to come in immediately. I told Marcus I'd call him back and drove straight to the school. Sophie was sitting in the principal's office with a split lip and tear-streaked makeup, looking smaller and more vulnerable than I'd seen her since she was a little girl. What happened? I asked. Principal Morrison, a thin woman in her 50s who'd probably dealt with every kind of teenage drama imaginable, looked uncomfortable. There was an incident during lunch period. Another student made some inappropriate comments about your family situation, and Sophie responded physically. What kind of comments? Sophie looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. Jessica Martinez called Mom a whore, said the whole school was talking about how she was sleeping around while you were working. I told her to shut up, and she said maybe I'd grow up to be a slut just like my mother. So I hit her, Sophie continued defiantly, and I'd do it again. Despite everything, I felt a surge of pride. My daughter might be confused and angry, but she still had the spine to defend her family when it mattered. I understand Sophie was provoked, I told the principal, but I'll make sure she understands that violence isn't the answer to cruel words. We're suspending both girls for the rest of the week. When Sophie returns, she'll need to attend anger management counseling. On the drive home, Sophie was quiet for several minutes before finally speaking. "Dad, I'm sorry about what I said the other night. About you being paranoid and stuff. I didn't want it to be true." "I know, sweetheart. Are you and Mom really getting divorced?" "Yes. I'm sorry, but there's no fixing this." "Is it because of what I saw in those pictures?" I pulled over and looked at her directly. "It's because your mother made choices that broke our family. Not because of anything you did. Not because of anything I did. She chose to have an affair instead of working on our marriage." "But why did you have to make it so public? Why couldn't you just handle it privately?" It was a fair question, and one I'd been wrestling with since my conversation with Vanessa. Because I was angry. Angrier than I've ever been in my life. I felt like she'd made me look like a fool, and I wanted everyone to know the truth about what really happened. And now everyone at school knows. Everyone's talking about our family like we're some kind of soap opera. I know, and I'm sorry about that part. You don't deserve to pay the price for the choices your mother and I made." Sophie was quiet for a moment. "What happens now?" "Now, we figure out how to move forward. Your mom and I will work out custody arrangements, divide up our assets, and try to co-parent you as best we can. It won't be the same as before, but we'll make it work." "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you still love her? Even after everything?" I thought about that question for a long time. Did I still love the woman who'd shared my bed for 15 years, who'd given me my daughter, who'd been my partner through all the struggles of building our life together? Or had that love died the moment I saw those photos? "I love the woman I thought she was," I said finally. "But that woman might never have existed. The person who could lie to my face every day while sleeping with another man. I don't know who that is." That evening, I called Marcus back. "I'll take the deal," I told him. 50-50 split, shared custody, no alimony, and I'll sign the NDA. "Are you sure? We could probably get more if we push this." "I'm sure. My daughter's been through enough." "All right, I'll let them know." After I hung up, I sat in Derek's living room and tried to process everything that had happened over the past week. I'd gotten my revenge, destroyed Vanessa's reputation, and proven that I wasn't the weak, oblivious husband she'd taken me for. But victory felt hollow when it came at the cost of my daughter's happiness. The next morning, Mia called me at the shop. "I heard about Sophie's fight at school. How's she doing?" "She's tough. She'll be okay. But I've decided to accept Vanessa's settlement offer and sign an NDA. No more public warfare." "That's probably wise. You've made your point." "Have I? Because right now it feels like everyone lost." "James, can I tell you something? About my divorce?" "Sure. My ex-husband cheated on me with his secretary. Cliché, right? When I found out, I wanted to destroy him. I hired a private investigator, documented everything, took him for every penny I could get. I even made sure his family and friends knew exactly what he'd done." "Did it help?" "For a while. It felt good to watch him suffer, to see him lose his job and his reputation. But eventually the satisfaction faded, and all I was left with was bitterness. It took me 2 years to realize that the best revenge was just living well without him." "So you think I made a mistake?" "I think you did what you needed to do to reclaim your dignity. But now it's time to focus on building something new instead of tearing down what's left of the old." She was right, of course. The war was over, and I'd won. Now came the harder part, figuring out how to live with the victory. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. Vanessa had quietly left her law firm and taken a position with a smaller practice across town, away from the social circles where her reputation had been destroyed. Damien had moved to another city entirely, probably to start fresh where nobody knew about his habit of sleeping with married clients. Sophie was living with me during the week and spending weekends with her mother. The arrangement was working better than I'd expected, though my daughter was still processing the upheaval in our family. I was closing up the shop on a Friday evening when Mia appeared in the doorway, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing a smile that made me forget how tired I was. Thought you might want to celebrate, she said. Celebrate what? Your freedom, your new life, the fact that you survived one of the messiest divorces in suburban history with your sanity intact. I laughed and gestured her inside. I'm not sure my sanity is intact, but I'm definitely free. So, what's next for James Carter, newly single businessman? Honestly, I have no idea. For 15 years, my life was built around being a husband and father. Now I'm just a father, and Sophie's almost old enough to not need me anymore. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe it's time to figure out what you want instead of what everyone else needs from you. We sat in my office, sharing the wine and talking about everything and nothing. Mia was easy to be with in a way that Vanessa had never been. No agenda, no judgment, no expectation that I be anything other than exactly who I was. Can I ask you something? I said after my second glass of wine had loosened my tongue. Shoot. Why did you really help me? I know you had history with Vanessa, but you barely knew me. You could have just minded your own business. Mia was quiet for a moment, swirling the wine in her glass. Because I recognized the look in your eyes when you got that first text. The same look I had when I found out about my ex. Like your whole world had just shifted, and you weren't sure which way was up anymore. And because I thought you deserved better. You're a good man, James. You work hard. You love your daughter. You built something with your own hands. Vanessa never appreciated what she had. How do you know I'm a good man? For all you know, I could be a terrible husband who drove his wife into another man's arms. Are you? I thought about it honestly. I don't think so. I wasn't perfect, but I was faithful. I was present. I tried to build a life that would make us both happy. Then you're a good man. And good men shouldn't have to apologize for expecting the same loyalty they give. The conversation was heading into dangerous territory. Mia was beautiful, intelligent, and clearly interested. It would be easy to fall into something with her, to use physical comfort to numb the pain of my failed marriage. But I wasn't ready for that yet. Maybe I wouldn't be ready for a long time. I should probably head home, I said. Sophie's coming back from her mom's place tonight, and I want to be there when she gets in. Of course. Mia stood up and gathered her purse. James, when you are ready for whatever comes next, I hope you'll let me know. She kissed my cheek softly and left me sitting in my office, surrounded by the familiar smells of motor oil and metal, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with the rest of my life. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I thought the drama was behind us. Sophie had adjusted to the new normal, my business was thriving, and I'd even started dating again. Nothing serious, just dinner and movies with a teacher named Linda, who didn't come with 15 years of baggage. Then Vanessa called me on a Tuesday morning, and I could tell immediately that something was wrong. James, we need to talk. In person. It's about Sophie. What about her? Is she okay? She's fine. But there's something you need to know, and I can't tell you over the phone. We met at the same park where we'd had our post-gala conversation, but this time Vanessa looked different. Healthier somehow. Less polished, but more genuine than she'd been in years. You look good, I said, and meant it. Thank you. Therapy helps. So does being honest with myself about who I really am, instead of who I thought I should be. What did you want to tell me about Sophie? Vanessa took a deep breath. She's been asking questions about the timeline of my affair, specifically when it started versus when certain things happened in our marriage. What kind of things? James, do you remember that weekend last March when you went to that auto show in Chicago? The one where Sophie got sick and I had to cancel my plans to stay home with her? Yeah. You were upset about missing some work event. I wasn't upset about work. I was upset because I was supposed to meet Damien that weekend. It would have been our first time together, but Sophie's fever spiked to 104, and I couldn't leave her. I felt a cold knot forming in my stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying the affair started later than you think. That weekend in March was supposed to be the beginning, but it didn't happen until May. The night you saw in those photos, that was only the third time we'd been together. Why are you telling me this? Because Sophie did the math. She knows her birthday is in December, and she knows that babies born in December are usually conceived in March. She's wondering if the timing of my affair has anything to do with why you two have been growing apart over the past year. The world tilted sideways. What are you saying, Vanessa? I'm saying our daughter is asking questions I can't answer, because I don't know the answer myself. You think Sophie might not be mine? I think there's a possibility. A small one, but a possibility. I sat there in stunned silence, trying to process what she was telling me. Sophie, my brilliant, stubborn, fierce daughter, who had my eyes and my temper and my stubborn streak, might not be biologically mine at all. Who? I managed to ask. Richard Baxter, the senior partner at my old firm. We had a brief thing 17 years ago, right before you and I got serious. I thought it was over, but he contacted me last March, said he was getting divorced and wanted to see if we could try again. And you were tempted. I was flattered. He was offering me everything I thought I wanted: partnership track, social status, financial security, everything I felt like I was missing in our marriage. But you didn't sleep with him. No, because Sophie got sick, and I spent that weekend taking care of her, and I realized that what I really wanted was right in front of me. I just didn't know how to appreciate it anymore. So why the affair with Damien? Because I was a coward. I knew I'd almost thrown away my family for a fantasy, and instead of talking to you about it, I convinced myself that our marriage was the problem. Damien was safe, young, uncomplicated, no threat to the life we'd built, just an escape from my own guilt and confusion. I stood up and walked to the edge of the lake, trying to make sense of everything she'd told me. Does Sophie know about your suspicions? She knows I had contact with Richard around the time she was conceived. She's smart enough to do the math. What does she want to do about it? She wants a paternity test. She says she needs to know the truth, whatever it is. I turned back to look at Vanessa. And what do you want? I want to do whatever's best for Sophie. If she needs to know, then we'll find out. But James, no matter what the test says, you're her father. You're the one who raised her, who taught her to ride a bike, who stayed up all night when she was sick. Biology doesn't change that. Doesn't it? Because if she's not mine, then everything I thought I knew about our family is a lie. Not everything. Your love for her is real. Her love for you is real. That doesn't change. But it did change things, in ways I was only beginning to understand. If Sophie wasn't biologically mine, then Vanessa's betrayal went deeper than just the affair with Damien. It meant she'd been keeping secrets from the very beginning of our relationship. I need time to think about this, I said. Of course. But James? Whatever you decide, Sophie's going to need both of us to help her through this. She's scared and confused, and she needs to know that we're going to be okay, no matter what we find out. That evening, I sat Sophie down in my living room and tried to have the most difficult conversation of my life. Your mom told me you have some questions about your paternity, I said. Sophie looked up from her phone, and I saw fear in her eyes. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause more problems. I was just trying to understand the timeline of everything that happened, and I realized... You realized that the dates don't add up the way you expected them to. Yeah. And you want to know for sure. She nodded, tears starting to form. But I'm scared. What if you're not my real dad? What if that changes everything between us? I pulled her into a hug and held her tight. Listen to me, Sophie. I have loved you every single day of your life. I have been proud to be your father through every triumph and every mistake, every moment of joy and every moment of heartbreak. A DNA test can't change 17 years of that. But what if nothing, You are my daughter in every way that matters. If you need to know the biological truth, then we'll find out together. But it doesn't change who we are to each other." Sophie cried against my shoulder, and I felt something settle in my chest. Whatever the test revealed, I was ready to handle it. Because she was right. We were family, and family doesn't abandon each other when things get complicated. The test results came back 2 weeks later. Sophie was indeed my biological daughter, and the relief I felt surprised me with its intensity. I hadn't realized how much the uncertainty had been weighing on me until it was gone. But the experience had taught me something important about the nature of love and commitment. I would have loved Sophie just as fiercely if she hadn't been biologically mine, because love isn't about DNA, it's about choice. Every day we choose to show up for the people who matter to us. Every day we choose to be present, to be faithful, to be the kind of person others can count on. Vanessa had made different choices, and we'd all paid the price. But now, finally, we had a chance to build something new from the wreckage of what we'd lost. Epilogue. The man I became. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I stood in the backyard of my new house, smaller than the old one, but mine in a way the other never was, watching Sophie graduate from high school. She'd decided to attend the state university, studying pre-law with plans to become a family attorney. "I want to help other kids whose families fall apart," she'd told me. "Help them navigate the legal stuff without losing sight of what really matters." Vanessa was there for the graduation, sitting a few rows behind me with her new boyfriend, a quiet accountant who seemed to actually appreciate her instead of taking her for granted. We were cordial now, united in our pride for Sophie and our commitment to co-parenting effectively. Mia was sitting beside me, wearing a simple sundress and holding my hand. We'd been dating for 6 months, taking things slow and building something real instead of rushing into anything out of loneliness or revenge. She was good for me, challenging when I needed to be challenged, supportive when I needed support, honest in ways that Vanessa had never been. After the ceremony, Sophie found me in the crowd and threw her arms around me. "I'm proud of you, Dad," she said, "for everything. For fighting for our family when it mattered, for letting go when it was time, for showing me what it looks like to start over with dignity. I'm proud of you too, sweetheart. You're going to change the world. Maybe. But first, I'm going to change myself. I want to be the kind of person others can count on, no matter what." As I watched her walk away to celebrate with her friends, I realized that my revenge against Vanessa had been complete, not because I'd destroyed her reputation or humiliated her in public, but because I'd raised a daughter who understood the importance of integrity and commitment. Sophie would never make the same mistakes her mother had made, because she'd seen firsthand the cost of betrayal and the value of loyalty. That evening, Mia and I sat on my back porch, watching the sunset and talking about the future. "Any regrets?" she asked. "About the divorce? About the way I handled it? About any of it?" "Any of it." I thought about that question seriously. Did I regret the public humiliation, the scorched earth approach to ending my marriage? Did I regret the pain Sophie had endured, the collateral damage of my need for justice? "No," I said finally. "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that Vanessa made choices that destroyed our family. But I don't regret fighting back when I was betrayed. I don't regret showing my daughter that some things are worth fighting for and that people who break their commitments should face consequences. Even if those consequences were harsh? Especially then. The world is full of people who think they can lie and cheat and betray without paying a price. Sometimes someone needs to prove them wrong." Mia smiled and squeezed my hand. "Remind me never to cross you. You don't have to worry about that. You're not the kind of person who breaks promises." "How do you know?" "Because I've learned to recognize the difference between people who keep their word and people who don't. Vanessa taught me that lesson the hard way, but it was a valuable education. As the stars came out, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment. I'd started as a man who trusted too easily, who ignored warning signs and gave second chances to people who didn't deserve them. I'd been the kind of husband who worked hard and loved faithfully and assumed that was enough to protect his family from betrayal. Now I was something different. Harder, maybe, but also more honest. I knew what I was worth, and I wouldn't accept less than I deserved. I'd learned that sometimes the people we love most are capable of hurting us worst, and that forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Most importantly, I'd learned that being a good man doesn't mean being a weak man. Sometimes good men have to fight for what they believe in. Sometimes they have to be willing to burn bridges and accept consequences and stand alone if necessary. I'd been called a villain for the way I'd handled my divorce. Maybe that was fair. I'd certainly been ruthless in my pursuit of justice, unforgiving in my demand for consequences. But if being a villain meant refusing to be a victim, if it meant teaching my daughter that betrayal has a price and that some lines shouldn't be crossed, then I could live with that label. The truth is, we all have the capacity for both heroism and villainy. The difference is in the choices we make when we're tested, when everything we've built is threatened, when the people we trust most prove themselves unworthy of that trust. I chose to fight back. I chose to demand justice. I chose to show the world exactly what Vanessa Carter was behind her perfect facade, and I'd do it again.